So I still remember one of the best birthdays I ever had. It was when I turned 10, and it wasn't just because I was going into double digits and feeling like a grown man at the time. There was one particular present I got that was absolutely life-changing. I got my very first paintball gun as 10 years old. Now, this wasn't just any paintball gun. This was the plastic pump cheapo gun from Walmart, the Talon or whatever. Just a piece of junk, all right? Sorry, Mom. It was great. I loved it. But I didn't even care. It was just awesome. And then all my friends and I, we all got the same ones right on the same time. So we would go out in the woods. We'd be running around playing paintball. It was like a blast. But then everything changed one week when one of my friends decided to upgrade. And he got himself one of those metal semi-automatic, like high-grade weapons. And in that moment, he launched a full-on arms race between my friends and I. Everybody started getting new gear, new guns. I had friends calling cartels and people in the Middle East for different weapons grade stuff. It got so intense. It got actually out of hand. And I still remember the moment when I knew we had a problem as a friend group, as I am hiding in the fetal position behind a tree, as my friends are raining down 13 paintballs per second with their fully automatic professional guns. It was absolute Armageddon on me. And it's weird because I still remember when that was happening. I had this moment where I just had this thought, I am missing something. Like, I do not have what I need in this moment. And I know it sounds kind of funny, it's just a 10-year-old boy saying that, but here's what is actually funny about it. That feeling never really goes away as you age. There's this weird feeling you just have where you're like, I'm missing something. And sometimes it's like this low-grade frustration you just feel about your life. Sometimes it's just a restlessness. Like, track with me. We all feel this on some level. Nicole and I have some friends, just this other couple, super cool people. They have awesome jobs, both the husband and wife. They make great money. They live in an awesome house. Their kids are happy and healthy, just good kids. They even just in the last few weeks bought this swanky, brand new 2024 car, only 10 miles coming off the lot, just like a bougie car. And on top of all of this, they are also very good looking as a couple. Okay, they even got that. Okay, they got everything going. It's the husband, though, who's kind of interesting. If you're around him, you sometimes feel just this kind of low-grade frustration kind of pulsating off of, like, it's like this kind of restless energy. You can just feel it. And he and I are close enough now to where I just got real with him. This is even just a couple weeks ago. We're hanging out. I'm like, dude, just level with me right now, man. I'm like, just what's going on, dude? It just seems like your head is spinning. And he got real honest with me in that moment. He's like, really, Brian? What it is I know I should be happy. I should be. I have no reason not to be happy, but I can't seem to get it. Like, I just can't find it. It feels like something is just missing in my life and I can't seem to fill that void. Now, before you think my friend is just some sort of entitled, punk who can't seem to find his happiness, what about you? You ever feel that sometimes? Just a little bit of restlessness maybe about your life, just some frustration. It's like, man, something is missing. I don't have all the pieces together where I can say I'm like totally satisfied with my life. Now, if you guys, anybody's just joining us right now, this whole summer we've been doing a series we've been calling Enjoy the Ride. We're actually going through a letter in the New Testament called Philippians, written by a guy named Paul. And really what Paul is trying to say through this whole letter is enjoy the ride. Enjoy this life. There is so much to experience and get out of this gift that God has given us called life. And yet, at this moment in this letter, Paul makes what I believe is the most radical claim in this entire letter. It's the most hard to believe. It almost feels like the most impractical and impossible thing he could say. And if you are a Christian here, you would say you believe the Bible, you have to honestly ask yourself this today. Do you actually believe what Paul is about to say is possible for your life? Do you think you can really experience this? If you're not a Christian in here and you're just kind of exploring and asking some questions, it's worth asking. If this is actually true, what would it really do for your life? How could your life actually change if this is really possible? So, what is this crazy claim that Paul's about to make? Well, he's going to set it up a little bit before he kind of does a reveal. But let's see where Paul goes with this. We're in Philippians 4. I'm going to start in verse 10. And by the way, before I read it, we also have these little awesome booklets for the thing. The last time I'll mention this, if you want one of these, it takes you through the whole series. Go stop by the kiosk or whatever on your way out. We'd love for you to have it. Back to the Bible. Verse 10. Paul says, I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. So what is Paul talking about here? These are just kind of the random verses, it feels like. Well, remember, right now in this moment, Paul's in prison. Okay, you should not be picturing some 21st century like maximum security thing. This is first century prison. These were typically just holes in the ground, basically. And you would just get thrown in it with some chains on you. And you didn't get 3 square meals a day. There was no shower. You would literally just sit there and you would rely on your friends and family to bring you food and other necessities. If they didn't bring it, the Roman government couldn't care less. You would just die in that hole. They did not care. And so Paul is rotting just in this hole, basically. And what happens is the Philippians, these people, they heard he's in prison. Paul's a friend, so they want to help the guy out. But they were in such dire circumstances themselves through their own poverty and persecution, they couldn't even help him out. And then finally a window of opportunity opens up. They send this guy Epaphroditus, who we read about a few weeks ago, and he comes with some supplies and some resources, and Paul's just saying, man, thank you so much. Thanks for thinking of me, guys. Like, I'm rejoicing, I'm so grateful. And then Paul does a hard pivot. Changes the whole tone of this thing. And Paul says this to them. I'm not saying this because I'm in need. Now pause. Paul, you are rotting in a prison cell. I would say you have some needs. You know what? How about we stop sending you food, Paul? How about we see if you have some needs then, okay? Mr. Ungrateful, you don't need anything. What is this guy even talking about? Well, Paul's not trying to just be difficult here and stubborn. He's trying to take this conversation to another level. He's saying, I want you guys to see that I'm not happy just because you sent a check. There's something so much deeper going on here. Paul's about to say, I have something else here. And I don't want you just to see it. I want you to experience it yourself too. And this is what you need to see, Paul is saying. For I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. So Paul says, I am grateful for the donation. But you guys need to understand, I have learned something and now have even accessed an experience of personal satisfaction and sufficiency that transcends my circumstances altogether. Paul says, I've found this thing called contentment. He says, I'm content. Now, this is not just a throwaway word for Paul. He's being very intentional with his word selection here. This word content was used by Stoic philosophers of the day. And the literal understanding of it for them was self-sufficiency. So when somebody would say content at that time, what they were talking about is discovering this internal level of happiness and joy and peace and satisfaction that you kind of muscled up yourself. And so just by finding all the little details of life that you could put together, you've gotten to this place of total contentment, like you feel satisfied. Now, Paul's having a little bit of fun with this word. He's going to surprise us with it later. He's kind of being a little secretive here because he does call it a secret. He's saying there's something about this contentment thing that most people miss. They don't understand it. It's not immediately obvious. And I actually love how Paul calls this thing a secret because we actually love secrets even today. Like, think about all the messages you see. The secret to making millions of dollars while sitting on the beach doing nothing, right? The secret to 6-pack abs in 6 seconds, right? The secret formula to get rid of every wrinkle you have on your entire body. We love secrets, right? We're like, what is the shortcut? What is the hack? How do I get that thing that gets me to my dream life as fast as possible? And there's actually kind of 2 overarching messages. If you really look at the messages sent to you all over in our culture, there's really 2 big ones. The 2 messages for how you actually can be happy and find this contentment thing in your life. The first message really is materialism. The message of this is the secret to contentment is more. Now think of like our entire advertising industry. Basically the message is the reason you're not satisfied is you just don't have enough. You know what you need? You need another bedroom in your house. That's what'll do it. You need that third row in the car. You need some more drip in your wardrobe. You just don't have enough bling. I sound like such an old guy when I say that stuff. I'm getting way too old to say stuff like that. I'm sorry to all the 20-somethings in here. But here, when you talk about this stuff, I feel like sometimes Christians come across stodgy when we say these things. It's like, oh, here goes the Christians. You can't have anything nice. You can't enjoy your life. You just need to be poor and miserable. That's what a good Christian does. And you're like, Brian, didn't you call this series Enjoy the Ride? Like, can I enjoy my life a little bit? And let me just say this, just so we can understand. There is a perfectly healthy desire for nice things. Like sometimes it's really nice to get a new car. It's nice to upgrade the house a little bit. It's nice to have some experiences. Like there's no guilt in enjoying some of the nice things of life, okay? A commitment to Jesus is not an absolute commitment to poverty. At the same point, there is a desire for more that can get a little twisted. And it can actually start to become a disease that infects different areas of our lives. Jesus, at one point in his ministry, he got approached by two guys who were fighting over an inheritance in their family. I know we never have drama like this in our lives today, but for them, they had issues with money. Jesus, you would think he would probably know exactly how to divide this thing up evenly. Like he would know exactly how to do it. And he doesn't even care to solve that issue for him. What he does is he drives to a whole nother issue. And he says to these guys, watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. Jesus is like, what I really want you guys to see is that you need to be very careful. That satisfaction you're looking for, that you think is going to come through, that windfall from your parents, it's not going to come through the accumulation of more. You're not going to experience it. Now, this is actually a universal struggle we all have on some level. All of us in here hear that voice every now and then that just says, man, if I can just get that upgrade, if I can just get that thing, that experience, that opportunity, that promotion, that's going to be it. I just need more. Then I'm going to be good. You see, this is actually a whole theme throughout the Bible because it's such a pervasive challenge for us. So even in the Old Testament, one of the 10 commandments, you know what the 10th one is? Speaks right to this thing. It says, you must not covet your neighbor's house. You must not covet your neighbor's wife. Male or female servant, ox or donkey, translation, their Escalade, their BMW, their whatever, or anything else that belongs to your neighbor. Now, this idea of coveting, this is just an angle of it. It's an unhealthy desire for what someone else has. So come on, we've all done it, right? You see somebody else's life, you're like, I want more of that life. I want what they have. I want what they're experiencing. I want what they're going. They just have it better than me. And it just creates this real dissatisfaction with your own circumstances. Solomon, some of you guys would recognize that name, one of the greatest kings in the entire Bible, had a level of influence and wealth unmatched, really, all throughout the nation's history. And he had so much wealth and power, he did a little experiment. He decided, you know what? I'm just going to say yes to every single desire I have, and I'm just going to see what happens. Maybe I'm going to find that thing I'm looking for. And look what he says about this experiment he does. He says, I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless. A chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. Now, I know what some people are thinking. You're like, he just did it wrong. If I had that kind of money, I'd figure it out. But see, Solomon just experienced what Jesus was saying. You just have to watch out. Otherwise, you will fall for the lie that that thing you're looking for is going to come through more. I had an experience of this just a few weeks ago. Earlier this year, I had a friend who had a nostalgic moment, and he decided he wanted to get a paintball gun too. He paintballed as a kid. And he was like, you know what, I'm going to get me a paintball gun, and I'm going to do this thing. So then he gets on me. He's like, dude, you got to get one too. Come on, we can be like middle school boys again. This is going to be awesome. So I'm like, man, I just don't know if I want to spend the money on that, whatever. And he just wouldn't let up. This dude would not give me a break on this thing. He's like, dude, get one. It'd be awesome. So I finally gave in. And as a grown man, everybody, I'm going to make you all proud. I bought a paintball gun. Is it grown? Okay. Yeah, you can clap. Thank you. But It's funny because it was nothing crazy fancy. It was another one of those kind of entry guns, but the technology has come so far. I mean, this was pretty crazy. So he and I go to one of these paintball parks in the area, and we get there, and there's a group of middle school boys that approach us. Say, hey, you guys want to play? We'll play you old guys, you guys against the little kid. And we're like, okay, us old guys will play you. And I'll tell you, all of my childhood trauma came out after that moment. And I said, I will exact my revenge on what I experienced as a child. And I went full Armageddon on these 12-year-old boys. We went so hard on them, we pinned them in a truck, and they had to beg the referee to end the game because they were crying so hard. Yes. And I know what some of you guys are thinking right now. You're like, Brian, is this what you do in your free time? Just terrorize middle school boys? And the answer is yes, it's absolutely what I do. It's very therapeutic for me. So, it's true. Now, here's what is so funny about that experience, though. This is the first day I tried this little gun. It's all fun. You think it'd be just fine, right? And even a dumb little thing like paintball. You know where my brain started going after that day? Ooh, what if I got that new gadget over there online? Or that's a cool colored thing. Or what if I got this cool thing you could wear around your waist? And I started going down the rabbit hole of more for paintball. It just never goes away. Just this desire for more. And this is really what the Bible's trying to tell us. This is actually pretty profound. Get this. If you are not satisfied with what you have, you will never be satisfied with what you want. If you don't have it now, you're not going to get it with that more you think it will. It's not going to come. It's an endless game. It never ends. There's not enough stuff in this world to satisfy your soul. Now, that's kind of the materialism message. I think all of us understand that on some level. And I think we'd all agree, okay, yeah, that's not the source of happiness, Brian, I get it. But there's a whole pendulum swing in our culture right now, especially with the millennial folk. There's a whole message right now of minimalism, which the message of this is the secret to contentment is less. You see this with so many social media influencers and everything. You know what your problem is? You have too much. You got too many commitments. You have too many things going on. You actually have too much square footage. So you know what you need to do? You need to downsize your life. You need to cancel some things. You need to empty out your calendar a little bit. You know what? You just need to sell your house, buy yourself a van, and post on Instagram how great your life is now just driving around the country and doing that. And I will say there are definitely times in life where you can probably admit, like, all right, we just got too much going on. We got to simplify the life a little bit. But you got to be very careful with this one too. Because if you're not careful, you're going to start hearing this message in your head. And the message is going to be this. Once we get these kids out of diapers, then things are going to get a lot easier. Okay, once we get these kids in full-time school, then we're going to actually have some room to breathe during the day. Once the kids are out of the house, that's going to be better. Once the kids move out of the basement when they're 65 years old, we're finally going to be free. Once I die, I will finally be done taking care of these kids. You start just thinking, no, this is just a hard season with work. The travel's going to slow down. The commitments are a little bit much. Like, it's going to get easier down the road. And then you start doing math. You're like, you know what? If we save here and do this, we might be able to retire a couple years earlier, and then we can finally downshift a little bit. Like, we can have some margin in our lives. And what you start to realize is, this day is never coming. We can't seem to get there to that moment where it's like, we just have life under control. And I want to just talk to some people right now, because if you feel that in you, you have to be very careful. Because what you may not realize is you are actually complaining about the very burdens that are coming from the blessings God has brought into your life. Just hear me out. You begged God for that family. And yes, those kids are terrorizing your house now. Unfortunately, that is a package deal. You wanted to move up in your career. You did all the hard work. You did all the things. And now you're mad that you got staff drama and travel and pressure and deadlines. It's like, did you think it was going to get easier by moving up? And so just be very careful. Am I complaining about a blessing God has brought in my life because it might come with some burdens? Just something to think about. But if you are always waiting for some ideal future in your mind of this is when I'm finally going to get it and arrive, again, that's just another temptation. He's not satisfied either right now, so Thank you for pushing my message forward right now. Now, here is what's interesting about these two different messages. They're actually the same thing at the end of the day. These two messages right here, both of them are saying there's something about your circumstances that you need to change if you're ever going to be happy. It's your circumstances. You got to fix those things. And so this is what our world says. There is a secret. And the secret is you need to find that perfect combination of house and family and pets and job and weight and hair color and every single little ingredient of your life. And if you can get every single thing perfect, you're going to find it. The holy grail of happiness. You're going to get there. And so what you need to do is you need to keep tweaking the circumstances of your life. You need to find the right conditions where you can finally get to that moment of true happiness in your life. And this is what Paul is trying to say to us today. True contentment is not conditional. You will never find what you are looking for through adjusting the external circumstances of your life. You are never going to be truly satisfied just by achieving, obtaining, or reaching certain criteria that you have. What did Paul say? He said, I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances, in any and every situation. Now, here's what I find so funny. People today, pretty much everybody would say, yeah, I agree with that. You're not going to find true happiness or contentment in your circumstances or conditions. Then why aren't you content? Why aren't you satisfied? Why are you still frustrated with your life? Clearly, we don't have something Paul has. Now, let's do a little mental exercise here for a minute. Let's just imagine for a second, all of us, if we all actually experienced what Paul is talking about here. Total contentment with your life. Where you have this profound experience of just internal peace and calm and joy. It's the default state of your soul. How much better would your life be if you had that? How much better would your relationships be? Your Monday through Friday? Would you enjoy the ride a little bit more if you had that? And you had it at such a level that there was no circumstance that could steal it or add to it. It's just a constant default mode in your life. Paul says, I have it. I found this thing. And you can have it too. So what is it? What is the secret? What did Paul learn and how do we get it? Well, remember, Paul used the same exact concept that philosophers of the day were using. This word content means self-sufficiency. You build up your own strength. You find your own joy. You cultivate the internal peace of your life. And if any of us in here have really tried to do this, you have discovered something. You can't really do it. You get it for like 5 seconds, right? Maybe a couple minutes it sticks and then it just kind of dissipates and fades again. You're like, this doesn't work. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I'm exhausted. I'm lonely. I'm frustrated. I don't have it. I can't do it. And the reason you feel that way is because you're right. You can't. You don't have it. Jesus, at one point in his ministry, he said this, apart from me, you can do, what is it? Nothing. Nothing. Jesus says, you don't have it. You can't do it. Now, Deion Sanders, some of you guys would recognize that name, Primetime himself. He's our coach now at Colorado University, the football team. And if you don't know some of his story, he reached the highest heights of athletic competition. Super Bowls, he even played in the World Series as a baseball player, 2 sports, professional athlete. I mean, fame and money on levels most people will never even get close to. And yet, Dion went on his own journey of realizing he didn't have it. Even Primetime himself could not do it. And actually, there's a little clip I found where he just kind of gives us some little bits and pieces of his story of this thing he learned himself. Take a look at this. We'll check out his story.
How did you come to know Christ?
Hell. I was kissing hell. I was making love to hell. I was adopted by hell. I was going through hell at the height of everything. I was winning Super Bowls, playing the World Series, doing my thing, but had no peace, no joy. Didn't feel like no one loved me but my kids. The only thing that I felt like was real and authentic and loved me because they're the only one who knew me. You could sleep in the bed with 2 and 3 women and nobody's satisfied. You got 100 suits, you can't cover up the pain. You got 300, 400, 500 pairs of shoes, you can't take a step in the right direction. You got 9 or 10 cars in the driveway, you ain't going nowhere. You got a 15,000 square foot house, but you ain't got a home. By the time you get to the bottom, because God is calling you collect, and you do not want to accept the charges because you know it's going to cost you something. I've trusted man, I've trusted woman, I've trusted child, I've trusted people, places, and things. And every last one of them have somehow, some way or another let me down. But not Jesus. But not Jesus. Not one day, not one time, not one moment.
He said, every last one of them, some way, somehow, let me down. You will not find true contentment through the conditions of your life. There is no amount of tweaking of the circumstances you're having that can truly get you to what Paul is talking about. So Dion learned something. Paul learned something. And we just said a minute ago that Jesus made a pretty strong statement. Apart from me, you can do nothing. And yet in one other spot, Jesus, talking about the possibilities here, says with man, this is impossible, but not with God. All things are possible with God. Oh, it's true. You don't have it. You can't do it, but Jesus is very clear, but God can. God can do anything. Everything is possible with him. And now Paul says, you know what I learned? This is what I found out. Paul says, I can handle anything I face. Anything I'm going through. Paul says, whether I am on the mountaintop or the valley, whether I have prosperity or poverty, whether I have health or hardship, victory or defeat, Paul says, I can handle all of it. And not just handle it, Paul says, I can have joy in it. I can have peace through it. I can have hope ahead of it. I can have contentment all around it. Because Paul says, I've discovered something. This is what I learned. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. When you get to a place where Jesus is all you have, you realize Jesus is all you need. And whatever you face, whatever you need, the strength, the provision, the help, the direction, he will provide. Jesus will get you to the other side. He will keep you moving forward. And so many people butcher this verse. They say, oh, I can do all things. All right, let's go. I want to go to the NBA. It's always been a dream of mine. I can do all things. You are 5'3", 62 years old. You got a 10-inch vertical. You are not getting anywhere close to the NBA. The YMCA Rec League doesn't even want you. Paul here is not saying you get to do everything you want to do on your bucket list if you just try hard enough and muster up the faith. That's not what he's saying. It is way better than that. You know what Paul is trying to tell us right here? Jesus will provide everything you need for anything you face. Put that on the screen so they can see it. Jesus will provide everything you need for anything you face. This is the secret. This is where Paul's having fun with it. He says, it's actually not about self-sufficiency, because you can't do it. What you need to learn is to tap into a supernatural source. You need to learn God's sufficiency. You need to learn how to experience true contentment that can only come from Jesus himself. And every person here, you are going to learn this in a different way. God is going to custom design a learning process for you. Some of us in here, you are going to learn this secret through the heaviness and hardship of life. When you get to the bottom and you have nothing else, you're going to realize, Jesus is enough. Even on your worst days, he's enough. Some of us in here, you are going to learn this the same way Deion Sanders did. It's actually going to be through the journey of more. You're going to climb up to levels of success and money and achieving your goals and dreams. And what you are going to realize is, this doesn't do it. It does not fill me. It is not enough to satisfy the soul. And in that moment, you'll realize, only Jesus can do that. It's the only way I'm ever going to find this contentment. And whether you're in a season of plenty right now, or you're in a season of want, whether you are well-fed or hungry, Paul says, if you will lean into these seasons of life and learn how to tap into the source of supernatural strength and sufficiency itself, you will start to experience something, and it will surprise you at first. It's almost going to feel like this contradiction in your own mind and soul, because you can be going through anything, and yet somehow, even in the middle of all that, you're going to start feeling this deep sense of calm and peace, even joy. Even when everything is not okay in your life, you're still going to be okay. And what you will have learned is how to be content in any and every situation. You will have strength from Christ for anything you face. And so this is the truth, everybody. You can. You can do all things because Jesus can do all things. You can handle anything that is going to come your way in this life. And I don't even know what you're going through, and I can say it with that much confidence. If you will learn to tap into the source, you'll have everything you need. So, church, there is a supernatural source for you, and his name is Jesus. We're going to pray right now, and I want this to be an opportunity for us to start practicing and learning this very thing Paul is talking about. Let's pray. Lord, I just want to thank you that this is the heart of God for us, that you don't want us living frustrated. You don't want us living just a restless life of being dissatisfied. Lord, you want us to experience true contentment of the soul. Not just our own self-sufficiency, God's sufficiency. Realizing that you are enough. And right now in this moment, you might have something where you are just feeling restless about it, frustrated about it. You feel like it is stealing your joy. The conditions of your life are making it hard for you to find contentment right now. And let's just take a moment. Let's go to God with this. God, we're asking right now that you would help us start to learn this right here, what Paul's talking about. Contentment in anything we face. And Lord, we're bringing our situations to you right now. We're bringing the conditions and circumstances of our lives. God, I'm asking right now that you would already start to do work in this room right now. That we would start to experience this contentment you say is possible, Lord. A contentment of the soul that doesn't depend on any situation. God, will you help us start to experience that right now in our lives? Jesus, you are enough. You are more than enough. And help us experience that today. We pray this in your name. Everybody said, amen.